And we are live. Hi, my name is Tyriece
Elijah Jones. Elijah Jones.
This is MMA Renegade episode 42, I believe. 42.
42. We getting up there now. Kind of
We are.
past the dirty 30s, man. Kind of proud about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And
How are
we
you
are
today?
both. I was gonna say we're both fucking tired.
Bruh.
This pay-per-view went on longer than we thought it was. When you got 3 title fights, you expect it to go long, but
You do.
man, I didn't go to sleep till about 3 o'clock. You didn't come into the house because you was out and about
I
till
was
about
out
5.
and about. Yeah, I wasn't
So
out and about, but I was
you were
staying
out
in a
there.
very safe environment.
Yeah.
Bruh, tired. I'm tired when I don't come on the show with my glasses.
Yeah. It's
That's
time when I'm
Are you over here? You in bed? It's just
yeah.
it's one of those days. It's one of those days. But it's another beautiful Sunday. Tyreece, how are you feeling today? Aside from the tiredness going on.
We have a lot to talk about. I'm excited to do this show and the disclaimer here. So this would be probably our last live show in a while.
Mhm.
And the reason behind that is we wanted to structure the show a little bit differently. We've kind of grown so how we'll do a recap show and we'll talk about the fights, stuff like that. But I want to give more content. I want to give more of our expertise. And so we're going to be talking not only about the card, but also about UFC news and MMA news that's going on in the world. Like what we'll do today with the news of Alistair Overeem and Junior Dos Santos retiring.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we're going to put these episodes and shows, an actual real podcast, on SoundCloud, on these other
Mhm.
platforms as well, which will give you more information in the coming next week. So we're this is not we're changing the format, but for the better, to give more to the fans, the people that's watching the show, and give more entertainment.
Yeah, I
Um,
think growth as you were explaining to me before. You're like, hey, like I got these great ideas. Let's run them. Let's do it. I was completely on board when you told me when you wanted to switch up the format because it's not like what we had didn't work before. But there's always so much more that we could always give, and trying to fit that in is always not the easiest. So I'm excited to start the new structure of your show.
Yeah, and I think that's how we pretty much started. We started out pretty much with recapping shows. We did a lot of news, and I think we kind of fell off of that when we started focusing more on
Yeah.
just breaking down fights. And now fans get the most more of. They get to see us break down fights, but also touch on UFC news that give our opinions on things that's happening
Yeah.
in the world.
It seems like, well, with the world kind of now a year into quarantine, and COVID still being prevalent, it seems like there's the MMA world and community starting to not get back to normalcy, but there seems to be a lot more movement now. I think you're right. Like we did switch away a little bit more from news, but at a certain moment in time, there wasn't as much news to cover, really, right? We
Yeah.
would mention certain things, and we would mention how fighters left, some fighters didn't leave. But we're a year, sorry, into this COVID pandemic, and now we're starting to see some big changes happen within the MMA world, as well as with organizations like UFC and Bellator, ONE FC, etc. So happy to be commenting on them and give our opinions about it.
Yeah. So again, more information to come. I would say to people that subscribe, people that's watching, sign up for our Discord. Uh, a lot of our more fight talks, our more post fight reaction stuff like that, that will be on Discord where we can actually talk to us. We can have a conversation.
Yeah.
I just think it's a better way to interact with you guys instead of coming on here and then coming into in the comment section. We can actually talk together as a community.
And
So
Tyrese,
that's what I want to start.
what is the Discord for our show?
The disc. So I'll put a link in the Discord in our description. It's called MMA Renegade, the name of our show.
Noise.
And yeah, it's that there we could. It's kind of like if you don't know what Discord is, it's kind of like what a Facebook group would be,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of we could share opinions on fights, share comments on fights. We could actually watch along with fights as well. So like last night, if you was in the Discord, you could have watched the fight with us.
Yeah.
So like there's to hang out with us, to be with us, to be a family. That's what we want to do. So I would definitely say sign up to Discord. We're gonna put it in the description after the video, and we hope to see you there.
Yep.
Elijah. Proceed.
Do my thing. Well, since we're switching up, I'm going to go ahead and tone it down a little bit, see how this works for us here. Last night, UFC delivered yet another impressive card. UFC 259. See, that's how tired I am. Even we talked about this. We're messed up. But UFC 259 is in the books. I made a UFC card, which we didn't know would actually come to fruition. And when we did, we realized how stacked it would be. We had 3 title fights on the main event card. We had the newly crowned bantamweight champion Petr Yan versus Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling. Then we had Amanda Nunes defending her 145 belt against none other than the phenomenal Megan Anderson. And then we have the main event. We had the defending light heavyweight champion, newly crowned, Jan Blachowicz versus the contender, middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya. These 3 title fights we knew were going to be big because their UFC put all these on one big card. But last night we kind of got a crazy mixed amount of reactions in terms of finishes in one fight, how we expected one fights to go, and the final main event and how that ended up turning out. Before the event, we actually called and talked about it as we usually do, and I believe our picks for the fight were we had Jan winning the light heavyweight, Jan Blachowicz retaining the light heavyweight belt. We had Petr Yan. Actually, you had Petr Yan winning, retaining his bantamweight belt. I had Sterling winning, and then we both picked Megan Anderson as to see. We just, we're so used to Amanda Nunes. She's phenomenal, actually the greatest female MMA fighter of all time. We figured maybe Megan Anderson would give her some issues, and last night's results showed none other than that. Actually, the opposite, really. Petr Yan actually got disqualified in his 5-round fight against. Aljamain Sterling. And Tyreece, you want to talk about that fight right now? We'll go in order of, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, so the Jan and Sterling fight, we pretty much talked about how Sterling's best chance was to take Jan to the ground and hopefully be able to contain him there. That proved to be not to be the case. Jan's takedown defense is amazing. The one thing I liked from Sterling was that he was not just headhunting; he was going to the body too. Mm-hmm. But the thing I noticed was that the blitzes and the constant blitzes and Jan's defense, I wondered if Jan could take those shots and defend, because Sterling has not been known for being a power puncher. No. So I was wondering if the fight goes later on and Sterling's not able to take him down, it spells more trouble for Sterling, because Jan is going to get comfortable in there. Jan's power is going to be there. And as Sterling gets tired from keep moving and the pressure and trying to go for takedowns, Jan's going to take over and just pick him apart, which is pretty much how it played out. Only problem is Jan made the cardinal sin of kneeing a down opponent.
I mean, I think that's one of the top. I mean, there's many rules in an MMA fight, right? Like when you really think about it, there's a lot of rules which you have to abide by. But I believe
you can't bite, you can't.
In top 5 rules, and in top 5 rules that everyone pretty much knows in MMA is that you cannot knee a downed opponent, and we define an opponent as someone who has one knee on the canvas, correct? Just one. Fighters, or sometimes depending on the state athletic commission, right? You can have them down on one knee and a hand, or you can have them with one hand on, down, but may not necessarily be on a knee. Regardless, you cannot knee a downed opponent. And what seemed to be going Petr Yan's way, if he had not done this knee, it would have almost been certain that Petr Yan would still be the bantamweight champion. Aljamain started off great the first round, but threw a lot of volume. He threw.
That's debatable.
And was trying to overwhelm Jan. I think Aljamain Sterling started off well. I think he started off like he does in most of his fights, right? He tries to overwhelm. He tries to get you into these, he's throwing in a weird way. He's trying to set up a kick to the takedown, punch to the take. He's just throwing a lot of things at you. And I think that was good, but you realize you can't keep that pace for 5 rounds against a guy like Petr Yan, because Petr Yan's defense is a lot better than people really want to give him credit for. Now, we know he's a fantastic striker, and so he carried that to the 4th round. Now, that knee was vicious. Yes, I want to talk about that knee. That knee was, I don't know if it was malicious or not, but he had him and paused and then kneed him. And Aljo
Right.
took a really big knee, and I was a lot of people were comparing it to the same situation as John Jones and Anthony Lionheart Smith, and I think that situation I think is a little bit different.
It
I mean,
is.
definitely the same one because when you look back at the replay, I don't know if the knee hit as flush as it did in this scenario, but regardless, Aljamain Sterling is now the bantamweight champion, and I'm sure he didn't want to win the belt this way.
No, I'm pretty sure he didn't want to win the belt this way either. And Flat Politics says, "What's up, fellas? Let's see Flat Politics." He says the Yan fight was crazy. The ref said grounded to Yan before Yan kneed Aljo. Not sure if Yan knew what that meant. Khabib also said Yan's corner told Yan to knee Aljo in Russia. Yan's corner told Yan to knee. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up, Flathead, because
I've been hearing that narrative too.
There's actually a clip they showed in the pay-per-view where Yan is going for has Aljo head, like you said.
Almost, position-wise.
And the corners, like the one corner man is saying, just punch. The other corner man next to him is saying, just do it. And as Yan throws the knee, you see the cornerman put his head down, like one cornerman said put his head down like this, and you see the other cornerman jumping and saying that's a finish.
Yeah.
So there was obviously a miscommunication between his corner and Yan.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, there is no excuses for it.
As a fighter, you should know that that's not something you can do legally.
Right. There's no even if you say he said in the post fight, I don't know if you've seen it. In the post fight, he said that his hands, the referee went in the back and they told him about the hand positioning on the ground, whether what's ground and what's not, what's in play. And even if that's the case, Sterling's knees were down.
Mm-hmm. Both knees. Need opponent.
Yes. So like, there's no excuses for that. Honestly, if you go back and look at the judges' scorecards, one judge had Sterling winning the fight going to in the fourth round.
Truth be told, I could see that judge who was giving him, who had that card. I could see why. But go ahead.
Right. If that fight was to play on, you would have to take a point off. That would have to be about, let's say, maybe 1 point, maybe even 2 points, because how egregious it was.
Yeah, it was pretty blatant.
Go ahead.
It was pretty blatant. I agree. We've seen deductions over 1 point.
And this was more egregious, so this could probably be a 2 point foul. So take that to a consideration, because the referee said don't do it. Yeah. This fight, honestly, if it went to a decision, if Sterling was able to compete and to last the fifth round, he probably could have won that fight.
Agreed. I think for the most part, you saw that shift. You saw that shift in dynamic, right? You saw Yan landing more with more precision, a little bit more power. He was obviously slightly fatigued, but he was in there. I mean, this is a deadly striker. And if Aljo had just survived and had been doing what he did in round 1 and 2 for those next 2 rounds, I agree he could have edged that decision out easily. But that knee was just bad. It was a bad knee.
And I wouldn't advise him to continue. Like, no. At that point, you took a nasty knee. You're concussed. You can see he's concussed. You can see that he's having a hard time. Luckily, he was cleared by the doctor, so hopefully he'll be home resting. And I pose this question to you now. So this fight's done. Say what you want. I see the narrative now is that Sterling was acting.
Yeah, everyone's saying he gave up.
I think that's complete bullshit. When you actually see the knee connect to his head and you see his head whiplash back.
You see the boom, and then off the set, I was like, "Whoa, that hurt!"
Like there's no acting. Like even if Sterling was okay enough to continue the fight, that is an illegal knee.
Yeah,
that is an automatic disqualification.
Please, sir, speak to the people, because there's a narrative on Twitter and Instagram that I'm seeing. They're saying that Aljamain faked it and all this other stuff. I was like, well, half of the people, one, aren't even going to get to that, that point where they can fight for the belt. So that's number one. And number two, I don't know anyone who could take a knee from a top 5 UFC fighter such as Peter Yan and be okay. I just don't, I don't know. Like, I don't know what you did. And then at the end of the day, it's not only is it like it's illegal, so the fight is stopped regardless.
Right. So no matter if Aljo was okay to continue, if he's not, regardless of the facts, it's an illegal knee. It's a disqualification.
Yeah, No, and again, I don't understand why people are saying he's faking it. No, I would if I'm a coach and my fighter took an illegal hit that could, potentially potentially put him in harm's way, not only for that round but for the rest of the fight. We're out of there. That's it.
And,
Out of
and
there.
Elijah, so I want to also put this question too in Flat Politics. Please tell me if you agree. He says the referee. I hated what the referee did. Mark Smith, what he did. Referee took such a long time to make a decision and put it on the fighter to make the call and see if the fighter can continue. Meanwhile, the fighter is rolling on the ground, clearly out of it, and he's trying to put it on the fighter to make the call. That is your call.
Yeah.
You make the call and you make the decision. And Mark Smith had another bad decision in his card as well. You remember the prelims fight, Euros Medic. I don't know if you've seen the fight. Euros Medic versus Allianz Cruz.
Medic. That should have been stopped.
Right, but Mark Smith had that fight go on for another minute or two where Cruz is taking unnecessary damage. So Mark Smith was off last night to begin with. But at that point, when you see the knee, you told the fighter don't do it. He's rolling on the ground and he can't even get on his feet. He has to be held up to get at the decision to become the champion.
Yeah.
What are you doing? So the reason why Aljo is getting the flack that he is because one, people are stupid. Two, Mark Smith being his decision to let the fight be decided on Aljo whether he can continue or not.
Yeah.
It's just dumb. It's just dumb. I
think there's a lot of wrongs. You're right. There's a lot of wrong things that went down in the situation last night. Yes. But overall, the takeaway is that it's an illegal knee. If the fighter's unable to continue, which he clearly was, the fight is going to be stopped.
Right.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It happened. Move on.
Let me ask you this, Elijah, because we're probably going to spend more time, a little bit more on this than the this discussion.
Yeah.
Do you think Jan should get another title shot?
I'll say this: there's a lot of things that can happen in the moment, and we've seen illegal strikes happen in the moment, right?
Mm.
When you review the footage of this, you see how blatantly illegal it was. Mm-hmm. It kind of makes you hesitant to give him a title shot again, right? Because it's like, whoa, like, the rules. You've barely ever done this before. Why do it now, right? So it almost makes it seem as it's intentional. I wonder what the repercussions for Jan will be in general. I don't know if Jan gets. I would like for them to run it back right away. I don't know if he does. That's the bigger issue. I would, as a personal fan, I would like for Aljo to give him time to heal up from this. Make sure he isn't concussed. I know they cleared him, but let's look at the long-term health and benefits. Let's look at the actual suspension. He's going to get one from this fight because we know there's always post-fight suspensions. Let's see that after clear physical and MRI, and let's see where they're at. And I'd like for them to run it back, but I just don't know if UFC. I don't think UFC is going to be like, no, he doesn't deserve a title shot because he's beaten almost every other person, right? So I don't necessarily see UFC saying no to him getting a rematch. In my opinion,
I don't see I think the UFC does the rematch. My only thing is this was an illegal knee, right?
Very illegal.
So, I never bring this up. Chael Sonnen brought this up on a post fight. I thought it was a great analysis on this. Mm-hmm. So it's the legal knee. No matter what you say, Jan cheated.
No one.
Right.
I heard no one say that. You are correct, sir.
Right. So in any other time where Mike Tyson bites Holyfield's ear off, he's suspended, take his license away. Another example he brought up was Victor Ortiz when he fought Floyd Mayweather with the headbutt. He had to go before the commission and explain the case and why that happened to get his license back. TJ Dillashaw, somebody that had EPO and everything like that in his last fight. We don't know about his other past fight, but we know exactly from the Cejudo fight he was taking EPO, right? He's not getting an immediate title shot. He got suspended.
Yep.
Does this make sense that Jan gets an immediate rematch for a title after what he just did?
If we're looking,
because there's inconsistencies in how they handle the cases of fighters.
and that's going to be the biggest thing. Does this actually go to the athletic commission on a trial, right? Is this something that can actually be brought against a fighter the way is which if they were to pop for an illegal substance? And the answer is the only thing that really happens when we see disqualifications is that they run it back, right? Even whether or not it was blatant. Take it like this: the Eddie Alvarez fight versus Dustin Poirier. The 12-6 elbow that was thrown by Eddie Alvarez was caused the fight to be disqualified. Correct. What happened was they ran it back because that wasn't a blatant. It was blatant, but it wasn't something that was like, oh, like this
it wasn't egregious.
Yeah, it wasn't as egregious as this situation. This really has to be handled correctly by the UFC, because if they do give him an immediate title shot, that's saying there's no repercussions for actually doing something that can get you disqualified, aka a cheating. That's what happened right now, and so I think this will have to be brought up honestly, even if it's a miscommunication. At the end of the day, Flathead Politics says, sorry, you surely haven't done that on purpose and risk losing his belt. Miscommunication issue. Lots of voices in the background, Russian and English, saying different stuff. Listen, there's a lot that goes down during a fight, right? You can't control. That's an X factor. You can't control who's yelling, who's not yelling. The coaches are going to yell. There's going to be people doing that. At the end of the day, as a fighter, you know what will get you disqualified and what won't. That's what I don't want to say you have to hold them accountable, but realistically, that was something that you can't do.
Yeah, I mean, do me a favor while we're still on top before we get off this. Pull up, you're on Fight Metrics. Pull up Jan's record for me while I go into my little spill here. Again, for me, Flathead, you may be right, but at the same time, who knows if Flathead Politics was, if Peter Yan was a little bit too emotional because of the build to the fight.
Yeah,
there's a lot of other factors, and on top of that, who holds somebody's head to the ground, and then as the referee saying, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't throw the knee," throws the knee.
And sure, there's definitely maybe a language barrier there, but realistically, again, as a fighter, you're supposed to know what can get you disqualified and what can't. And if we're looking at Peter Yan's record, he is 15-2-0.
Okay, so he knows. You said he's what?
15-2-0 in MMA.
That's enough fights to know you could not knee somebody while the knee is down,
unless you go back in time and fight in Pride.
So, I like Aljo. He's a champion. I think there should be a huge debate on whether Jan should get the next title fight. I think you have Corey Sandhagen that's waiting in the wings. You have these other fighters that are waiting. I don't. Yeah. Is it egregious? Yes. Is it illegal? Yes.
Yeah.
Should Jan get the get a rematch? You would have to ask yourself that when you have all the other fighters that take punishments for
bending the rule.
Bending the rules. So that's a moral question you have to ask yourself. But in my opinion, I think maybe think about giving Corey Sandhagen the next title fight.
Hey man, it's possible. It's possible.
Amanda Nunes beats Megan Anderson by armbar. Not very much to say here.
Triangle armbar. Not just an armbar. Triangle armbar. A modified. Flathead Politics, just before we get up the top, he said, Elijah, I agree. Giannis season certainly should have known better. Great show. Thank you, Flathead Politics. Yeah, agreed. It's one of those things where, unfortunately, like the same way we hold people accountable for doing, illegal banned substances, we have to kind of hold them for committing acts just like this. And Flathead Politics also writes, I like Aljo, and what happened was super unfortunate. Hopefully they run it back. I think they'll meet again. I think it's inevitable. I think it's inevitable, just given the bantamweight picture. But we'll see.
I will say this: join the Discord, man, so we could talk more. And also share and please, give us a like. We appreciate it, man. We appreciate you guys.
Yes. Moving on to Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson. Oh my goodness! Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say this. There's not really much to say here on this. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, but for me, I think the bigger story out of this fight was this is Megan Anderson's last fight on her contract. That's the bigger story here because Megan Anderson wanted more money. She wanted to renegotiate. UFC said, "We'll give you the title fight instead." So now Megan Anderson has to. I wonder what they're gonna do with that division and for Megan Anderson, because Dana White was kind of was like, if Nunes wants to keep it around, keep the belt, then we'll keep the division going. So I really wonder what the UFC is gonna do, especially when they're making cuts.
The women's featherweight division is it hasn't just Levy is Lego Papa TV. This man is a great guy. He is also a mixed martial artist himself. He says what's up, and I'm glad to have you on the show. We're talking about Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson. You're right, Tyreece. The narrative was kind of, this would be the perfect way to kind of ride into the sunset from Megan Anderson on the last fight of your contract, beating someone as great as Amanda Nunes, and then having that power to negotiate. Unfortunately, it did not go her way.
No, and it's interesting, man.
I think you and I, when we picked Megan Anderson, it kind of got to the point because I'm sorry, my brother's here. He's also tech support who brought my charger here. When we get to a point where Amanda is just so dominant, it gets to a point where it's just like, fuck it, might as well bet against her just one time, and that's what we did. And Amanda Nunes, I don't know if you'll ever watch this show. Who knows? I'm sorry for doing that. I don't know. She is without a doubt the greatest female fighter of all. Honestly, she's just in the top 10 fighters of all time for me.
She is.
It's of gender. It doesn't matter. How can you be you're so good. You're so good that no one in your divisions can beat you. I mean, don't get me wrong. The women's 145, division isn't as established, but Megan Anderson is a legitimate 145er at 6 foot, lanky striker, working with my guy from welterweight, James Krause, and I don't know, man. There's nothing more to say. She should jump up in the pound for pound rankings to at least top 5, if not top 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, I again, there's not really much to say. You can see the power difference. You can see when Nunes lands on somebody, you see Megan Anderson just freeze up, and you know how much that affected him. I honestly, Juliana Pena is probably going to be the next person for the bantamweight title fight. That fight makes sense because they've been talking for a while about that fight.
Yeah.
And Nunes needs somebody to fight. I honestly, I wish that Nunes could ride off in the sunset.
Yeah.
While she's still on top, and have her family and stuff like that, because that's what she wanted to do before Dana White brought her back. We'll see.
The thing about it is, though, Amanda Nunes is not. She's not old either. She's only 32. Like,
right.
And it's just crazy to have accomplished so much. And like, we want her to ride to the sunset, but like realistically, like some people could argue she's in the prime. Like, this is it.
Yeah, but also the division needs to grow too, right? Yeah. Because you have a featherweight division that's pretty much obsolete at this point, which they were trying to grow.
No love. Everyone's dropped back down to bantamweight.
The bantamweight division needs time to grow because now, like, there's not a clear-cut bantamweight right now, besides if you do rematches. If you do rematches with Jermaine Randami, if you do rematches with Holly Holm, like there's a bunch of rematches that Shevchenko are getting for a trilogy. Like there's nobody. There's still need people to come up in that division. So I think that's why the retirement talk is there, just so she can take a step back, have a family, and the division can grow and get better.
Yeah,
to kind of meet her in the middle, because right now she's so far ahead of the division.
There's such a gap. The gap is there's the people she's already beaten. Then there's the people who she's beaten who have already beaten the people below them.
Right.
If you could say, you know how they're like always like say that there's something without saying it. Like this is one of those situations. Say there's levels to this game without saying it. Amanda Nunes.
Right.
Literally her career.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the featherweight title, especially Megan Anderson, who may be out of a contract. Hopefully not, but it would make it like for Bellator would make sense to try to grab Megan Anderson, especially for that division over there.
Their 145 division isn't as established.
Way more established than
I will say this. It's more established. Sorry, I was trying to say way more established. It's way more established, one. And two, you also have Cyborg.
Yes.
So there's draw. There's draw over there automatically. But that concludes that. Moving on to the main event. Jan Blachowicz defends his light heavyweight belt against Israel Adesanya. I don't want to say this is one of the things we saw coming. I think this is one of the things that because we've watched MMA so much and, we study and we talk and we argue. Trust me, I know we seem like friends here, but sometimes we go back and forth over the phone about all aspects of a fight. This is one of the things that we knew, like, just jumping up to light heavyweight is a different level of competition, one. And two, Jan has proven himself as the number one light heavyweight right now. Mm. So, I mean, give your take on the fight.
Yeah, I mean, what I thought pretty much kind of played out in this way. One of the people talked about how Israel Adesanya could pick him apart, which I think he could. I think Israel Adesanya has skill. It's just it's just, to me, Jan is such a smart technical fighter now, and also I thought the grappling was going to be the difference maker. What he's going to mix up his grappling, which he did, and that played a big factor in it. He scored a 10-8 because of his grappling in the 5th round. I thought the wrestling with the technical striking of Jan was going to be an issue, and it did. It did. I had Jan winning 1-2, 4-5.
I had Jan winning. I want to say the 3rd round definitely was Israel. The 4th seemed like it could have gone Israel, and then Jan hits the takedown. Then it's like,
he controlled him for 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes, which was, I think, in my opinion, really smart. I was actually watching the fight, and I saw in the left corner that people were giving round 1 and round 2 to Israel Adesanya, and I was like, these are both rounds, but I don't think we're watching the same thing. One guy gave it, I believe, the 2nd round was like a 2018. And I was like, what?
Yeah, so there was a lot of that.
Yeah, I was confused. I think the rounds were really, really close, but I think it was tit for tat. But you saw when Jan landed, the impressive thing about it is that when Jan landed, he actually ended some of his combinations with body kicks. He started opening up with body kicks, and he returned leg kicks and was checking leg kicks with a style of like almost throwing his own. And I thought that timed perfectly with Israel's. And I think, again, like you said, this is all due to Jan having that growth as a fighter. I think he's become a lot more technical in his approach to fights. The only thing I could say about that, that was bad about it was maybe that his cardio. You saw him fade in the later rounds, but championship heart, man, the guy pulled through and landed the takedowns he needed and adjusted appropriately, and that's what makes champions.
While I talk for a second, Elijah, can you do me a favor? Can you pull up fight metrics and pull up the total strikes between Jan and Israel Adesanya? Because that's interesting as well. If I'm not mistaken, Jan beat Adesanya in total strikes.
Yes, so
strikes across the board.
In significant strikes, Jan Blachowicz, he landed 107 out of 193, and Israel landed 78 out of 161. Now, in total strike, overall, Jan landed 184 over 276, and Izzy only landed 99 of 182.
That's very interesting. That again, it showed that Jan was able to take the fight to Izzy, and Izzy the whole time was trying to throw feints and trying to make reads, and you can see. This is what I wanted to bring up as well. So the commentators were very biased last night. Extremely biased. Flat politics, and Lego Poppy, please tell me if you think so as well. Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier were not good yesterday calling the Izzy fight. They were making it seem like Izzy was running away with the fight going into the 4th round.
I think sometimes the narrative when you have such a great striker is like, oh, look at this, he's doing that. But when you really watch the fight, and I encourage everyone to go back and always watch fights without commentary, the same way in which Izzy was throwing feints and trying to get Jan to bite, you literally saw Jan throwing feints with Izzy.
Right.
And the thing about Jan is that we knew he'd have the power if he got into the pocket. We knew he would throw combinations with that left body kick that he loves to throw. And so the fight was a lot closer than people really made it out to be.
Yeah,
especially on the commentator side. The commentators made it seem like Izzy, not that Izzy was lighting them up, but that Izzy had
it was
advantages. Yeah. It made it seem as if Izzy was kind of like, what do you call that? Matadoring the fight. Hey, he's getting Jan to do this, Jan to do that. And it's cool.
And Jan had to do more.
Yeah, that Jan had to work harder, which is, we do see that sometimes when we have someone as popular as Israel. And he's done you see his body of work. We know that he can do those things that they're mentioning, but those things weren't happening to the magnification that they said they were last night, in my opinion.
No, I thought Izzy looked off. I thought he looked off, and I think that's because of Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz, one of the things is checking the leg kicks. Checking the leg kicks, so that made one, it cautioned Izzy from coming in on the inside. Two, Jan was able to continue to have that bounce on his footsteps. And a lot of it too, how Jan ended his combination. He would end the combination with a body kick as Alessandro trying to move on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Like those added up, and then also the takedowns, which to me this brought me back to if John Jones fought Israel Adesanya, how would that fight go?
We talk about this. We say there's always like Israel could tip for tap play, but if John Jones, the dominant John Jones, did what he did to Chael Sonnen, almost, not an Olympic, but a collegiate wrestler of the highest caliber.
Right.
I truly don't see that night ending well for Izzy.
No, it made me rethink. It made me rethink a lot of things. I think Izzy has the ability on the feet, but one of the things about Izzy is if you're not biting on his feints, if you're not reacting like too big on it, and you're like, Izzy's good, but Izzy usually responds to what you do.
Yeah, well, he's great at counter striking. That's one of his. That's one of his bigger tools and assets.
So if John Jones or if John Blachowicz is close, if they can do just enough to frustrate Izzy, Izzy's going to start coming in, and Izzy took some big shots coming in as well, and you'll see that the takedown is there, like the body lock, and then once you're on top of somebody like Israel Adesanya, this may not be the case for everybody, but at least for John Blachowicz and maybe for John Jones, because John Jones is so big. And that's why Dana White says, I think Izzy should stay that middleweight for right now, and let John Jones leave that boy alone. Leave that boy alone. Listen, let him stay there for a minute.
You don't want that. You're gonna fight a heavyweight job.
Because John Jones on top of you transitioning, it's going to be a way worse. And you see in the 5th round that the gas tank of Izzy slowed down considerably with the ground game of Jan Blachowicz in the 4th round. And imagine that going on earlier in the fight.
I'll say this: if there's any team to have made that read about the wrestling and trying to get tie Izzy up, I think it would have been Jackson Winklejohn. I think they have a brilliant mind, and Winklejohn. I think both coaches have a brilliant mind when it comes to John Jones' assets, and they probably know that Izzy is a better kickboxer than John Jones, right? But this is MMA. Like John Jones, just with his size, reach, and everything alone, these two don't. They measure. On paper they measure quite well, right? In terms of attributes, just body, things like that. But the skill of wrestling that John has along with his creativity and striking, would be a problem for Izzy.
Also, on top of that, notice the punches that landed clean on John didn't phase him as much. Like, there was maybe one exchange where Izzy caught him with a counter when John was coming on the inside. Other than that, the punches, like, John ate him well.
He took the jab well. I will say that. Yeah. Jan took the jab well. I was pretty impressed by that.
And then Izzy was taking jabs. Taking hard jabs.
I like that. He took a couple of straights too. I was very impressed by that. The thing about this fight was that the size of Jan is different than the size of the average middleweight. In my opinion, the average middleweight is somewhere between 6 foot and 6'1", 6'2", but the size is also a very big factor, right? You don't have a big guy like that stalking you down. The biggest person I think to date that Izzy's probably fought is maybe Martin Vettori in terms of muscle and mass, and we go back and watch that fight. It was a split decision,
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this fight is clearly there's holes in his games, because this fight was a close fight up until the takedown, but that's just a factor of MMA. That's a part of MMA, and you're just gonna have to grow from that.
again, I had Izzy winning. I had Jan winning 1, 2, 4, 5. So I thought it was clear dominant to win for Jan. There's no. We're not saying that there's like stuff to
Big
exploit and like there's
files.
a big holes in game. I do
Mhm.
say that it gets interesting now because now Izzy fixes his first loss. Now he has to rebound off of it, and Izzy's a champion. Izzy's a generational talent. He's always gonna be a great. But now other fighters
Agreed.
can look at footage and say, okay, I can do this. I can do this differently. I could work on maybe going for a body lock instead of going for a foot on double leg. Like there's
Yeah.
things now where fighters can start messing with. Like it gets interesting at middleweight especially for guys like Robert Whitaker, who's cerebral, Marvin Vettori, who has that
Robert
ground game.
Whitaker. Yeah, we know that Robert Whitaker and Martin Vettori are two guys who do like to utilize clinch. They do like to literally utilize a little bit of wrestling. You could potentially even see Kelvin coming back into the game plan
Darren
with
Till.
things like that. Darren Till. So again, great fight for both gentlemen. Izzy, honestly, post fight he didn't look bad. Like both of the guys didn't look bruised and battered. I think both of them held up really well at 205. I just think Jan had, he made the better adjustments when it comes to fighting a guy like Izzy. Didn't bite, employed wrestling, used his strength properly, and he got the W.
Yeah. So Jan's gonna face Glover Teixeira. I want Izzy to go back down to middleweight and defend his belt, and I think this is a blessing in disguise because that division, there's contenders there. And I still think that Izzy should go down there and continue to work on the middleweight division. Clear it out. Affirm yourself as being the greatest middleweight of all time. And then move up again. And then you can have those fights. But maybe John Jones gets older too.
Yeah. I mean, John Jones is not going to be – John Jones is what? Maybe like 32, 33?
Yeah.
John Jones – maybe 33, I think. At the end of the day, John Jones is not going to be fight forever. We already saw him take so much time off, vacating the light heavyweight belt, then jumping up to heavyweight. Again, this is a big takeaway from Izzy. This is a taste of what you could have. It wasn't like he didn't deserve to be at the table. Flathead Politics, Izzy said that this fight was his coach's idea. I wish he would have not taken the fight. Not a good move. I think as a fighter, I understand the need to challenge yourself. And again, I think this was a moment that really showed that Izzy, again, can sit at the light heavyweight table, but he's got to bring much more if he wants to be the champion of that division. That's it. And that's all I have to say. Overall, Tyreece, we always grade the card. How did you feel about the card overall? What would you say would be your grade?
I thought the prelims started off with fire, absolute fire. It was like I think it was six
Knockout?
finishes in the prelims and only 4 decisions. And all those 4 decisions, you had great fights between those decisions. Kyler Phillips versus Song Yadong was absolutely amazing. That's my fight. That's my fight of the night. Was that fight?
You had so many good knockouts. Oh, your boy Sean Brady.
Sean Brady had a great performance. There's a bunch of prospects on Euros Medic, who we brought up earlier. It's like there's so many good performances on this card.
Agreed.
And I thought the title fights delivered in certain sense. I thought the main event was good. I thought Amanda Nunes had a great performance.
As expected.
The Jan and Sterling fight was good up until the legal knee, but even the legal knees add some flair of drama, which again, for what it's worth, drama sells, and hopefully Sterling's next fight could be him main eventing. So yeah, and then Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober, that was a good performance as well. I give it an A. I give it an A plus. It was well worth the $80.
Yeah, I will say this: they put up great matchups, in my opinion. Right, a lot of people looking to get on the map like Kyler Phillips, guys like Drew Dober and Islam Makhachev looking to make their name. Flathead Politics gives it a B plus. It would have been an A if Izzy would have won. That's fair. I can understand that. I think this is an A card, man. We knew that though. We knew going into this card because UFC put all their money, all their bets and chips into one basket with this. And we expected that. We knew the matchups before this were going to be great. And it delivered. Moving on, Tyreece, take us to our next segment of the show.
So again, this is our it's probably our last live show at Flat Politics Lego Poppy. Thank you for joining us. Please share like this, like the channel, please. And join Discord. Join the Discord. I can't say that enough. Because a lot of our talks like this will probably be on Discord after the fights. So again, that'll be more fun. We could communicate. We could talk back and forth and debate with each other. So this is gonna be our last live show. We're gonna do tape shows, and we're gonna add in B-roll into the show and add in footage from the fights and stuff like that to try to make the fights a little bit more let's say enhance it a little bit.
We want to bring the experience. We talk about the things, but we want to really show you how our minds work when we're talking about things. We want to make sure that the fight, what we see, because me and Tyreece, again, go back and forth. In our minds, when we say stuff, we know, right? But we want to make sure we communicate that to fans, so that way everyone's on the same page.
No, Flat Fight. It's not our last show. It's probably gonna be our last live show in a while.
Yeah,
we're gonna do more tape shows to where it actually benefits you guys. So not only being on YouTube, but also being on SoundCloud and other platforms, so you can listen on your way to work or whatever you're doing. And also like for the video aspect, adding B-roll, adding footage, cutting footage up to putting in segments. So doing a lot more to give you a better experience watching us. If that makes sense.
Not only we talk about this, but we want to make sure that we keep the fans and make sure that we bring in new ones, as well as make sure y'all are getting quality content.
Right, and also bringing in news we could talk about here. So one of the things that came out of this weekend, was that UFC is thinking about going to Dallas. We won't spend too much time on this, but if the UFC goes to Texas, which Texas is opening up, no mask, full capacity. Some mayors are questioning the role and are reluctant to do a full capacity, full house show. Do you think this gets done by UFC 260, which is this month?
I've learned one thing: don't doubt Dana White.
Very true.
Dana White makes it happen. Now we know there's powers that be that are gone, so it may make things harder. But the one thing that Dana White does is he makes it happen. I think he's one of the greatest promoters ever in terms of sports. I think it's possible. I do think it'll be very hard to convince, them to actually bring 100% of the fans back into a stadium to watch a UFC event. I think it's going to be hard convincing a lot, maybe not the government, but a lot of the higher up officials that this is something that needs to happen. That's something that can happen. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily agree with the state actually opening up 100%.
All right.
I do think, we're still at a time where people can still get sick. We know we have the vaccine that's out. I'm one of the people who did receive it. And things are changing in the world. That's fine. But 100% capacity, I don't think that's the best bet. But if that does come to fruition, I for sure see UFC going to Dallas. UFC's gone to Dallas before. I see no issue with that. I can totally see it. And UFC 260 is, I believe, I'll look up the date for that, Tyreece. But if you want to give your take on that.
I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's March 30th.
Let me see here.
Oh, I put the Discord link in the comment section. You can click on that link there. It's interesting, right? Because Dana White, from the beginning, said he wants to be the first person to do a live full house, and he would not do he would not do a partially capacity show. He's done it in Abu Dhabi, so he kind of walked that back a little bit, but still in the States he has yet to do it. I think Vegas is the perfect setup for him. So unless he is incentivized to go to Dallas or go to Texas, I keep saying Dallas because it's interesting. If this isn't the case, let's say not March, Conor McGregor wants to come back in May. He's always said he wants to do Dallas Cowboys Stadium.
Yep.
Texas being the first state to do full capacity, it's lining up with the idea that maybe Conor McGregor gets his wish this year and possibly fights in Jerry World, Dallas Cowboys Stadium. Full capacity, gets to be the first UFC fighter to sell out a stadium arena like that. And on top of that, Dustin Poirier still is training now, so there could be some maneuvers in the works about Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor potentially for an interim title fight or a title fight.
Mm-hmm. Listen, man, it's all possible. I think Dallas. Sorry, yeah, I think it's possible for Texas to have a UFC, of course, event. But we have to see how they really decide to vote on 100% capacity.
We keep saying Dallas because it seems like Dallas is going to be the place to open
I think
up.
I think Dallas is going
to be the one.
They were pushing it. I mean, we didn't mention it. They mentioned it. UFC mentioned it.
Right. So I see it happening. UFC 260. If it goes to a full capacity crowd, it's gonna be interesting. Because that's a good card for it to be with a crowd. Again, it's not happening in New York, so I don't give a fuck at this point. Yeah. Like as long as it's not happening with me and I'm not involved with it, I could care less at this point. I don't want it to
happen if it really does endanger people. That's my take on it. I don't want that to really happen, but realistically,
I don't give a fuck anymore. Do you?
People aren't going to listen. Some people are going to want to buy tickets. Some people, you can't stop people from wanting to do what they want to do at the end of the day. So if you're opening up and people want to buy tickets, that's on them.
And if you want to take that risk, take that risk. I just can't see myself
participate. There's other ways to watch it. Yeah, as I say, there's other ways. What do we usually do? We buy it. So
yeah.
Overall, I don't see it. If they do open up and get back into Texas, I want to see them do it correctly. I want to make sure that it's perfect and people are accurately being tested, or just making sure that everyone is safe. That's the way I want to see it.
Right. Moving on. We talked about it earlier in the show. Alistair Overeem and Junior Dos Santos no longer with the UFC. And it's interesting, right? Because we found this out by Twitter. The UFC didn't make an announcement. The UFC didn't make a statement or anything like that. It was, hey, JDS and Alistair Overeem is not in the rankings. What's going on? And then it came out later on and that Junior Dos Santos and Alistair Overeem, said that the UFC parted ways with them. And I thought that was a little bit dirty. To being honest with you, because
sorry, I'm not to cut you off. They gave their farewell. Well, as soon as we heard news that they had been, they haven't re-signed contracts. I'm sorry, they were let go by UFC. You see these, the story, hey, thank you so much. We're parted ways. So it was very short time. But again, continue.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit dirty too. I thought, for somebody for Joe Dos Santos and Alistair Overeem, who's been a staple of the heavyweight division, who's been contenders, who's always been in the conversation of being a title contender as well.
Yeah.
I thought they should have gotten a little bit, and they're legends at that. I thought that they should have got a little bit more of a send off, or like a statement from the UFC, thank you for your service or whatever. But it is what it is. Junior Dos Santos, Alistair Overeem, two older fighters in the heavyweight division, both coming off of losses. So they're gone. It's to see where they land next, or if their career is over. I still think Junior Dos Santos he could still compete.
Yeah,
I think Alistair Overeem maybe.
They both can compete. I think they both can compete. But when we consider them top 5 contenders or top 5 heavyweights of the current heavyweight world today, that's hard. It depends on how the night really is. I'd probably sway towards no, and maybe you do too. But there's so much experience shared between these two gentlemen.
The heavyweight division is a revolving door too.
Yeah. That's also true.
So there's also older talent there that, on one given day could get knocked out by somebody that experienced as JDS or an Alistair Overeem. So that's interesting, right? Because honestly, this is maybe good for them. Maybe they get a big payday with Bellator. Bellator needs to beef with the heavyweight division.
What? Maybe they go to PFL.
Maybe PFL. I would love. You still got Fedor there. Fedor's trying to get a send off. Maybe do Fedor versus Alistair Overeem.
Way to end Pride. That'd be perfect.
That would be fucking amazing.
That would sell. I can guarantee you that card would sell.
Yeah, Fedor versus Alistair Overeem. Fedor versus JDS. So there's instant fights you could make. And overall, I think that they're both two legends in MMA. Remember JDS won his title on the first event of Fox.
Beating Cain Velasquez, one of the
undefeated
heavyweight champions of all time.
Who's undefeated at that time too.
Yeah. Came in, clipped him with a right overhand, end of the game. This is back when UFC had outside sponsors with Boni Acai. He was one of the first fighters to have a Nike contract outside of John Jones. I mean, I don't know. I do think letting them go. I wonder if the talk had been like prior or whatever. They're two still good talents. I just don't think they're competing at the level of which they used to, which is fair, right? The fight game, you get older. It's not possible, but I still think they could be a great asset to those other organizations out there, such as PFL, such as Bellator. Maybe we even see one of them fight for ONE FC.
Maybe. At least now there's other organizations that are doing well, that are established, that you could go to. Not like in years prior, where there's maybe like one other promotion that you could go to that are even televised. And bare knuckle fighting is also looking for people as well. So like, there's also that avenue, which they're paying money. So good. So like, there's other avenues if they want to continue fighting, especially for JDS bare knuckle fighting. My God, that
might be an issue because that man's boxing is so crisp.
Yeah. And I bring this up as well because we're seeing the UFC continue their cuts. They said at the end of the year, Tyron Woodley. I mean, maybe think of Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley's fighting Vicente Luque, UFC 260, which you brought up before.
Yeah.
If Tyron Woodley loses that fight, can you see Tyron Woodley being the next big older star let go? Yeah,
it's possible. 100% possible. I don't know what happens with him. I do think he's a big name, but again, he's been on such a UFC may not deem him as a 4-fight losing streak. UFC may not deem him as an asset with five fights. Generally, most people are 3 to 4, right? Some people only 2. So with a name like Tyron Woodley at 5 losses, he could be potentially seeing a way out of the UFC, unfortunately.
And he's also been a guy that has been combative with the UFC as well in the past, and we don't know how the relationship is now. Hopefully, it's good. So yeah, like even in his last couple of fights, he's looked not like the Tyron Woodley of old because he is older. He's a father. Yeah. He's doing other things outside of the UFC, which is good. I'm happy for him. That's how it should be done.
Yes.
But I don't know if the UFC may view him as an asset. If you lose to Vicente Luque, who they're trying to build up as the next welterweight contender, that is a violent assassin. So, if you will, so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. So, I overall, it's something to look out for. Megan Anderson as well. Megan Anderson out of her contract.
Yeah,
a lot
of cuts coming, and there's still more. Remember, UFC said they're still getting rid of a lot of people. So in the next few months should be interesting in terms of who gets cut and based on how pay-per-views go. Is there any other news you want to bring up?
Not really. I mean, the other thing I would say is Khamzat Chimaev and his retirement, quote unquote. We'll see how that sticks. There's so much going on with that where you have Dana White saying he's not done. He's only emotional. You have the president,
Prime Minister.
Is he Prime Minister? I want to say he's Prime Minister.
I know.
Prime Minister Ramadan Chimaev. No, Ramadan. Hold on, I have his name here. Okay. Why are we guessing we have the incident in front of us?
We're both too lazy to do it. Well, I mean, we all know Khamzat Chimaev we know that he had got COVID, and that's what pulled him out of the fight with Leon Edwards. Unfortunately, he is one of the fighters who hasn't had the best time in dealing with COVID. They say that there's moments where he's not breathing as well. Apparently, there's been reports of him sometimes coughing up blood. There's just a whole bunch of reports, but bottom line is he's not in training condition as he was when he was on this tear in UFC, fighting both at welterweight and middleweight, right? And so long story short, he had came out and said that he himself is going to retire, but you had initial talks of, Dana White saying, no, he's not retiring. Then you had someone from the country he lived in,
President Ramzan Kadyrov,
saying that he's urging him not to, retire. Yes. So you hear a lot of reports. Bottom line is, I think he's still young. I think this is a time where he needs to heal his body properly. Dealing with COVID and recovering is a nasty thing. So once he gets his body right, I think he'll still be such a contender, and he's young enough that he can still compete with the best in the welterweight and middleweight division.
I mean, you're somebody that had COVID at one point, and you recovered and everything like that. Can you speak to how it affects you? And maybe everybody's different, but how did it affect you, and how, like, long term?
biologically, although we have the same things, again, genetics, age, race, things like that play a factor in how you deal with certain diseases or certain syndromes. COVID for me at least, I had it for the full obviously 10 to 14 days, but the symptoms were a little bit mild compared to other people. I did have coughing, body aches, headaches. I didn't lose my taste of smell my sense of smell or my taste at all. But one of the things I found that I was extremely tired and was not motivated to do anything. And so that, as a fighter, you kind of have to do things in order to, train. Like that's just it. I would only assume that having any of those symptoms, even just mild while training, could be a hindrance to your overall performance. So if I had it for those 3 days, which were really bad, and then I got better, and he's continuing to have long-standing side effects, I can only imagine that his health is really not in the actual place it should be. And
piggyback off of that, Elijah, how did that affect your mental health as well?
For me, actually, I did have to isolate in a COVID hotel. Mentally, it didn't really change much for me, right? I think one of the bigger things, at least for me, was that I needed to focus on getting better. But the issue with when you have, for me at least, when I had COVID, was that I wasn't better until 3 to 4 days after. So it was just continuous. Like this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel good, and then the symptoms they got worse. Obviously, in any type of sickness and things like that, COVID is is a situation where things get worse progressively until they get better, like a cold, right? So the symptoms got really bad for me. By the third day, I was fine and starting to recover better. But it was a feeling. The one thing I will say, sorry, is that it's a feeling that you don't want to feel because you're just not right. You're not right at all. And so knowing that you're not right makes you not, it just puts you in a bad mindset, at least for me. So, hey, that's probably what he could be dealing with. But they say, there's reports saying he's trying to train, do all this other stuff. But, you never know. You really never know with such COVID. You really don't.
And that for me, that provides a little bit more, and I hope for the listeners that a little bit more, maybe a little bit clarity into the mind of what can I have gone through as a fighter, and about to fight the number 2 guy in the world, and then you get COVID, and then you're trying to get back, and you were booked to fight 4 times at this point. So I could probably understand where he's frustrated and stuff like that. At the same time, though, we got to think of his health. He showed a picture of him of blood in the sink, which alluded to people thinking that he was coughing up blood, which is a red flag in itself. So for me, I'm interested to see more information how it comes out. Hopefully, he's not being ushered to fight soon or to rush back in there, because this is something that, again, this COVID thing, we don't know how bad it can affect. There's different strains of it now too. So, we don't know the long-term effects of it. I just don't want to see him rush in there and then face more health.
Agreed. I think the best bet is for him to really take the time to get better. You can still work out, but you kind of have to tone it down.
Yeah, right. So,
to him, I'm interested to see. I'm interested whenever he comes back.
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to be a problem. He's still going to be a problem if he does come back. If not, this is the end of his career. He had a meteoric rise, and he could say that he was on the cusp of fighting for possibly the number 1 contender shot for a belt in the UFC. So hats off to him. And hopefully he recovers well, and hopefully he can, be at full strength and full health, because again, if he's coughing up blood at this point, that's not good. That's not good at all.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tyriece, I like the new format. I think it's great that we broke down fights in the short time that we did, and then we always, we call each other and talk about the things that happen in MMA, but it's also great to bring them to the show. So thank you for switching up the format.
Yeah, we're an hour and 3 minutes here. I did not think we was going to talk that long, but again, the UFC 259, there were so many aspects to talk about. So it was interesting. But I'm hopefully Lego Pop, you enjoyed the show. Flat Politics, you enjoyed the show. And we will be back next Monday. So we're going to tape the show on Sunday, and we're going to have the show done for you guys on Monday morning. With B-roll, with other footage, and we'll also in the description we'll tell you, other links to SoundCloud, maybe Apple Podcasts as well, so you can listen on the go. So hopefully you guys enjoy the format. Hopefully you guys join the Discord. It's in the comment section. I'll put it in the description as well. We'd love to see you there. We'd love to talk to you guys after fights as well. So signing off. My name is Tyriece Simon.
Elijah Jones.
This is MMA Renegade episode 41. Have a nice day, guys.
Take care.